is a football season in America, and then where I live, Bloomington, Indiana, the Indiana University is doing very well. A lot of people are excited about. And I was talking to a person who was very excited about Super Bowl, and they wanted to host a Super Bowl party, and they told me they think having fun together with loved ones and friends is what life is all about. So that comment shocked me a little. Sorry. I'm maybe very judgmental. Everybody knows that. This story made me think of a story in Lotus Sutra. There's a story, children playing with toys inside the house on fire. So this house on fire is samsara, where we are living in. And so children are so absorbed in playing with toys, they don't think of, they don't even know house is on fire. And they don't think of getting out of the house. And in this story, the father is father tells children, I have these great toys, so outside, if you want these great toys, please come outside. So that's how the father get the children out of this house on fire. So the father is Buddha Shakyamuni, and I guess toys teachings to get them out of the house on fire. So we are living in this world, like with playing with toys. So whatever toys you think is most fun, maybe money or good job, or maybe sports, maybe children, family, material wealth, good house, traveling, vacations, anything can be your toy. And then you were just chasing one toy after another, and that's how you spend your whole life. So most of people can spend their life like that, and they will never come to spiritual practice. So I don't know that's, so the having good enough life, sort of complacent. So in a way, it's good enough. So they don't really think of getting out of this house on fire. They don't even think this is the house. They're living in a house on fire. So I was talking about the life of Sawaki Roshi last time I gave a talk, and he had very, very difficult life from when he was young. He lost his parents when he was 4 years old. He lost his mother. 7 years old. When he was 7 years old, he lost his father, and then he was adopted to uncle who died very quickly, like 6 months after, but he was also abusive. to him, and he was adopted to another person who was actually gambler and then probably alcoholic, and he abused young Sawaki Roshi, and then used him as a child labor. So that made him really wanted to get out of this. He realized he was living in this house on fire, so there was urgency to get out. So he was seeking the light, seeking the way out. So I was wondering what is better, having good enough life and never come to never come to seek the way, and then having difficulty and challenge, and then they had this urgency to seek the way out. So I know, like I have a couple of my friends who had decent, good life, good job, good family, good friends, money, house, everything, but they still came to practice. They gave a talk about how they came to the path. They explained, even though they thought they had everything, they felt there was something missing, and then in the end they came to seek the way. So it might take, if you have a good enough life, happy life, it might take a long time to seek the way. But I do think this is sort of natural development of human beings. Sooner or later, everybody has to come to spiritual path. That's what I think. So this I listen to sometimes Dharma talks by Theravada monks, and one of the teacher is Ajahn Amarov, who teaches at Amaravati in England, Amaravati Monastery. He's from Thai forest tradition. He said in one of his Dharma talk, he said, Buddha Dharma rises from suffering. So way-seeking mind, bodhicitta, rises from suffering. So suffering can serve the purpose to bring us to the path. So anything can be our teacher, or anything can be a lesson to learn from. So in Sawaki Roshi's life, his father was a good teacher, and because he was a very bad example. So when Sawaki Roshi went to Russia-Japan war, Russo-Japanese war, and he was badly injured. She was shot through the neck, and then the shot splitted the tongue. So she was unable to talk, and she was almost died. He was put on the bed, and then somebody put I think medic put the white card on him. The white card signify the people who are going most likely die, but he survived, and he was sent to Japan, and then he was treated in the hospital. And when he recovered enough, he went to his hometown to rest, to recover more. And he found out in his old house, his adopted mother went crazy, crawling on the floor. And then adopted father borrowed money and then bettered Sawaki Roshi's life because the adopted father believed Sawaki Roshi is going to die. So, and when your son would die in a war, you received compensation money. It's called death gratuity. And so he, the adopted father, gambled away, and he lost the money. So he was really angry at Sawaki Roshi when he came back. He was not supposed to live. So this greediness of adopted father really taught Sawaki Roshi how this money, attachment to money, causes so much suffering. So he said, Sawaki Roshi said, I had to face life seriously whenever I see my adopted father. And he paid, Sawaki Roshi paid all the debts that the adopted father made with his pension from military service. And he told the adopted father, whenever I see your face, I can't help becoming earnest. Because of you, I didn't go to bed. Please take care of yourself. Last time I gave a talk about Sawaki Roshi's life, my friend Madison asked me a question later. Why didn't Sawaki Roshi get angry at his adopted father and abandon him? So Sawaki Roshi had a genuine, compassionate heart. His birth father, although he only had a very short time with him, his birth father was generous and kind and compassionate person. And then in Japan, Confucianism was embedded in the culture. So respecting and taking care of parents are very natural, regular practice. But also Sawaki Roshi had a good example, like his birth father, and also Morita family who were living next to him when he was young. So also he had very good understanding of life of samsara. He studied Yogacara. So Yogacara is a study acknowledging and accepting human earthly desires. So he understands how human beings, ordinary people, suffers from greed, hatred, ignorance, depending on each person's karma. So he really understood that. That's why I think he didn't really, abandon his father, his adopted father. So he, from the experience of being with his adopted father, Sawaki Roshi learned to not take anything personally and learn not to blame anybody, and also do not depend on anyone. So he had difficult life, but also there are inspirations that led him to the path. The inspiration he had was he was living in, like I talked about before, he was living in a temple town, and he was seeing that monks working on in the town begging, doing takuhatsu, and he was inspired, moved by the sight, and also the temple bells ringing in the town, and he was, sensing the impermanence with the sound of bell. And he went to listen to Dharma talk, and he was inspired by Dharma talk of Snow Mountain boys who gave his life to listen to Dharma. So, and then he really wanted to study Dharma. So he thought becoming a monk is the way for him when he was like 16 years old. So when he went to Eheji, so his inspiration was the scene of Zazen. So he was first inspired by seeing the monks sitting Zazen, just seeing the shadows of 4 or 5 monks sitting. And he was like awestruck of, the sight. He felt like majesty, like in dignified sense. And another time he sat alone while other monks are gone, an old woman helper, impressed by seeing Sawaki Roshi's zazen, and then prostrated him several times. So these things happen few times. So he didn't understand why zazen had the nobility or legality or majesty, but he felt there is greatness in zazen. So when he met Hueoka Roshi, Hueoka Roshi was a Zen master who practiced another Zen master, Boksan Nishiari Roshi, for 20 years. So Hueoka Roshi taught Sawaki Roshi Zazen practice as shikantaza in the tradition of Dogen Zenji. And Hueoka Roshi taught him also Zazen Yojinki, Gakudo Yojinshu, Ehe Shingi, some of Dogen's writing. Hueoka Roshi gave Sawaki Roshi private lessons. because Fueoka Roshi found Sawaki Roshi somebody special. He knew Sawaki Roshi, how serious Sawaki Roshi is, how eager to learn. So he really wanted to help him. So, but Fueoka Roshi told Sawaki Roshi, in order to understand Shikantaza, just sitting, taught by Dogen Zenji, and the other teachings in Shogo Genzo, Fueoka Roshi told Sawaki Roshi that he first needs to study Buddhism in general. And so that's what he did. So when Sawaki Roshi first learned Zazen as taught by Dogen Zenji, he really found this is what he was looking for. This is the way he wants to live. So but when he was young, he was still looking for or wanted to get enlightenment, satori. And so often Fueoka Roshi sort of teased him, sort of like, the example he had was a little dirty. So it's kind of like the story of fire boy seeking fire. So fire boy, fire god, looking for fire, even though he himself is fire. So Fueoka Roshi was using that example. You are looking for something outside, but you already are that. But Sawaki Roshi doesn't understand it until later, when he practiced and sit alone for 3 years. So at the time also, Zazen was sort of outdated. So many people stopped practicing Zazen. So many monks, priests in Japan, even now, they are not practicing Zazen that much. So Sawaki Roshi was the person to revive the Zazen in Japan. He was asking himself always, like, as a practitioner of Dogen Zenji's lineage, am I doing right? Always reflecting himself. And he kept practicing Zazen diligently, even though his classmate, who he studied together at Horyuji, told him, like, oh, this person told Sawaki Roshi, but you think Zazen is important, but no one will be interested in Zazen now. You will have a miserable life. No one will be inspired by Zazen, and nobody want to do Zazen with you. You will have a lonely life. I advise you to study something like English other than Zazen. So although he was taught like this few times, just Zazen is outdated. And at the time, and even now, the many temples are serving as a funeral, the service directors, and then so that's how they make money. That's how they survive as a temple. But Sawaki Roshi really despised the idea. And then, so when you do, when monks and priests are just surviving doing funeral service, like making money, and then making their temple big, or the raising family, they will just forget about their practice. And then Sawaki Roshi sees so many examples of this, and he was so disgusted by that. And he really wanted to sit zazen. And he went to sit 3 years by himself. He sat from 2 a.m. to 10 p.m. for almost 3 years, eating rice and pickles and grated daikon, radish. And he was malnutrition. And he looked like 70 years old, even though he was 35. So it was really difficult to sit by himself for such a long time. It was not like a peaceful, quiet zazen. When he was sitting, he said something like he was sitting in the middle of the bucket full of crabs spewing bubbles. That's like thoughts after thoughts, thoughts after thoughts, all these, maybe negative experience of his childhood, angers, disappointment, or the sadness would come up, but one after another. But he said that the truth will be realized when you sit through, like in a bucket full of crabs, in crabs spewing bubbles. And he said, the way of truth is not always popular and accepted in society. The things popular and accepted don't necessarily have truth in them. There is no truth in the things that satisfy your 5 senses. We must practice toward the direction of truth, following ancestors, having true convictions, not being bothered by mundane desires. So he also said, if you don't have the resolution, when you don't have anyone who is interested or excited about your practice, having no disciples, students, no Dharma brothers and sisters who practice together with you, you feel lonely and lose confidence and lose sight of what you're doing. What you're doing is any good. You are practicing diligently all by yourself, but no one is practicing with you. You feel stupid, then you will stop in the end. It is only a matter of yourself, so you should be okay practicing by yourself. But if no one approves of you, you will lose confidence and doubt yourself. But he sat for long time, and then another Zen master, Oka Sotan Roshi, also found Sawaki Roshi very special. So he was concerned about Sawaki Roshi, so he sometimes invited him to do a session or like a lecture with him. So whenever Oka Roshi invited Sawaki Roshi, he went to uh, to 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 serve as a jisha attendant, and also gave a talk. So during his sitting alone for 3 years time, sometimes he left the temple, and then when he came back, had this small temple was very dirty, like spider webs and dust and maybe mice poops and everywhere, and then everything stinks. And then Sawaki Roshi felt it was okay. He was not, he was not disgusted by this, the sight of his temple. So this practice of sitting by himself for such a long time made him realize everything is okay as it is. He talked about the becoming transparent doing zazen. So he understand shikantaza of just sitting without goal, without gaining mind, and just be with everything. Being with the connected to the universe. So the zazen, as he sat zazen, he understands the life that doesn't die. He understands the reality of interconnectedness. Him, this dirty temple he was living in, was not separate. So there's no object, subject, subject, object. So there was no judgment. And he was fine. He was okay with it. So, this is from Sutta Nipata. When our mind and its objects do not arise, there is nothing special. So Sawaki Roshi got to this place, nothing special. I was able to realize the self that is connected to the universe. So another inspiration he had was Okesa. When he heard the story of Garudas, the piece of Okesa will protect you no matter what. And he really wanted to wear the Okesa. When he heard the story when he was little, he wanted to protect himself because there was so much suffering. And when he saw Hueoka Roshi wearing Okesa, he was really moved by his Okesa, and he really wanted to wear the Okesa. So he studied Okesa, and then eventually he found somebody who made the Okesa for him, and he wore it. And he studied Okesa, like many texts of Okesa. And Sawyer asked me last time, do do I think if there's a power in Okesa? And I couldn't say yes or no, because I think this is sort of depending on each person. So if you think Okesa has power, I think there is a power. And if you don't think that Okesa doesn't have power, Okesa is just a piece of fabric, doesn't mean anything. But I also asked Todo-san what he thinks of it, and he said he felt protected by Okesa when he was practicing in Japan, doing takuhatsu, because Japanese people understand what Okesa means. How when they saw Okesa, they don't attack. So he was not attacked by people, so he felt protected. Then also my housemate Andrew told me when he saw last couple weeks ago when Todo-san gave a talk, he was impressed by, he looks so legal with Okesa. So there is something about Okesa or maybe another religions, clothes priest or clergy, where there's some maybe sacredness in it. But also when I think I heard this, I think it's probably this is by Suzuki Roshi, why students ask him why do we receive precept, why do we wear this rakusu? So Suzuki Roshi told the students because that would inspire other people to practice. So, because Sawaki Roshi was also inspired by Okesa, that was his inspiration, and that brought him, to this path. And then maybe somebody else can feel oh wow, that looks so legal, So that could be a little doorway to the path. So inspiration to practice. And then so Sawaki Roshi taught Okesa sewing to people and have people sew Okesa when he gave a talk on Okesa. And so Okesa sewing was also revived by Sawaki Roshi. So Sawaki Roshi was reviver of Zazen and reviver of rakusu. Zazen, reviver of Zazen and Okesa. So do you think so Dogen Zenji's teaching was really primarily Zazen. So if you don't sit Zazen, if you don't practice, you are not going to be realized the truth of Buddhism. It's we need a muscle to practice with. So this is body practice. And so this is what Sawaki Roshi said in this book. Got some of them from the Zen teaching of Homeless Kodo. The truth of Buddhism is realized only through practice. It is attained through the body. the way we use our muscles must be in accordance with Zazen. Practicing Zazen, we train our attitude toward life in each and every activity. This is practiced within it. We actualize true peace of mind. So I feel like I wanted to ask myself, am I practicing Dogen Zenji's Zazen? Am I actualizing his practice by example? How I walk, how I sit, how I talk to other people, that has to be coming from my practice. And then so I know some people are getting ready to receive precepts or signing up to receive precepts, and then for a long time I didn't know, or I didn't quite understand the meaning of receiving precepts, but I think the morality is important when you have something unethical in your mind or activities, there's always struggle, there's always uneasiness, or struggle, and there's no peace in that mind. So morality, or following ethical guidance, is important for us to have a calm, peace mind to practice. So I do think it's a great idea to receive precept. So thank you for signing up. Okay. I think I'm gonna stop. It's kind of half-baked as usual, but anybody has a comment or questions, please.
Start with folks in the room. Who has a question or comment for Esho?
I've got one. So, you made a comment that somebody, that when you're living in a house on fire, you don't see that the house is on fire. Or if people have a good life, or having fun with their senses, they don't want to see bottom of it, want to or not. My question is, what if you live in a house on fire, you see it's on fire, you know it's on fire, you're on fire, you know that, but you still don't want to leave?
Yes.
What would you say to a person? What would you say to a person stuck in that situation?
Well, I think I thought of that actually, because when I was talking to this person who said like life is having fun with their friends and loved ones, and then they saw my face, and then, wait, so you don't think that? it's like so what do you think it's, what is life is about? And then, but I couldn't really answer that, because they were not asking me questions. So I do feel like they have to come by their own will. They want to leave the house. Because if they don't want to leave the house, it just, so do you remember like the usually like Buddha have students ask Buddha 3 times, so then he answered or responds, so they have to really want to know. So if I don't, this the Buddhism is not like evangelical, so I don't think I can pound on a person who doesn't really want to get out of the house, so it's kind of difficult, but everybody has their own karma. This is also like a patient practice. I'm not gonna teach or tell Dharma who are not interested in, or there's no point because they're not gonna be able to hear it. So they have to take their own course, unfortunately, and I'm not saying like I'm looking down on them, because I had, I never thought of coming to this path. When I was having fun, I was chasing after something, one after another. I never thought of that. And then I think probably somebody says something like this to me, I was like, are you crazy? So I think, it's, in a way, you have to wait until person is ready or person wants to come. Otherwise, there's no point, because I sort of invited people to come to getting started. This is like intro to Buddhism class and Zen class to this temple many times, like maybe, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 people, and then who even came here. So not, on maybe 100 people saw my, the email or something, but then only maybe 20 people, well, okay, I'll sign up. Maybe from 20 people, maybe 15 people came, but there's only one person sitting here. So, so they have to want it, So I think we know this world is on fire, but we can't really control it. We can't really, change by force. So, but also like we have to really understand the karma of each person. Everybody has their own things in it, and then until they're ready, their fruits have to ripen, then they will come. So when they're not ready, there's no really point of pouncing on them. So unfortunately, they have to stay in a burning house. Sorry.
In a day like today, it would be better to stay in the warm house.
It's very cold in Indiana, yes.
I think Myogen has raised an interesting perspective, though. So imagine you're in the burning house. As he says, the house is on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire. You want to get out. There's a part of you that says, I want to get out, this is not okay. And there's a part of you that says, I don't actually want to leave. What an interesting intersection, right? And I think we've all had that experience. I know that overeating chocolate cake is not good for me. That's my house on fire, right? And yet, here's the chocolate cake, and I eat it anyway. There's some reward we're getting for staying in the burning house, or we wouldn't do it. So can we look carefully? So I'm assuming Myogen is sort of speaking for all of us who have had some taste of practice and know the house is on fire. And yet, right? Can we look carefully in our practice and say, what is the reward I'm getting for staying in the burning house? There's some short-term reward, right? Or we wouldn't be doing it. And then can we look carefully at, what is the satisfaction that comes from staying in the burning house? Is it long-term contentment, long-term release from suffering, or is it a very short-term adrenaline rush, sugar rush, right? A short-term satisfaction. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy the short-term satisfaction, but can we see it as a short-term satisfaction? Can we know beyond overeating the chocolate cake, there is something, right? I can enjoy being with my friends, I can enjoy doing these short-term things, knowing that that's fine, and there's this larger picture, right, of universal functioning, and how do I fit into that? So how do we get to hold those two things? I think that's the conundrum of the human condition, right? We know in this human form there will be suffering. There will always be suffering. There will always be a burning house. And also, how do we live in the midst of that? And how do we walk in the world in a way that opens up that little bit of a gateway for somebody else who might be suffering and doesn't quite know what that's about, but looks at us, our Raksu, our human form, and says, there's something going on with that person. There's a little bit of equanimity. There's a little bit of something. We all know people like this, right? It could be grandma, right? It doesn't have to be a garbage teacher. It could be just somebody we know who walks through the world in a particular way, and you just go, that person got their head on straight. There's something going on there, right? If it's possible for that person, it's also possible for me. If it's possible to look at Esho and say, Esho somehow has left the burning house, it's possible for me also to leave the burning house. So how do we walk through the world as we're struggling with that intersection, because we all are, right? How do we walk through the world in a way that opens the gate for somebody else? I think that's an interesting point of our practice, right? So I think Esho and Yoga are raising something really interesting, right? And very long-term in our practice. Let me stop talking. But it's a really interesting intersection, right? Because we live there every day. I'm yielding to somebody else who had a hand up.
My comment is actually to follow what you were saying about Esho too, which is when you ended your talk on the precepts, the way you did. I thought that was a major part of your message for the day. That more was going on in my mind at that time, but it was that I was just saying. Plus, kind of a perennial question that Hoku tends to bring up with this about finding a place for Zen in North America, and those two thoughts converge on this idea of the importance of the precepts for us. So I appreciate that part of your talk especially. And during this part of the conversation, I kept being struck with the fact that the Father, who you were equating with the Buddha, used more glittering toys to get the children out, and in a sense told them their own truth in telling their tales, so you get them out and force that talk, that story into your message. It would be all right to sustain them that way, so that they can see the next step, their possible transformation. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in terms of the discussion about getting out of the burning house, it might be helpful to remember too that as bodhisattvas, there's samsara is no different from nirvana. So in a sense we are in the burning house as bodhisattvas. And yet, I mean, the whole question of the identity of samsara and nirvana is kind of an interesting additional element, I think.
So should we break out the marshmallows?
Marshmallow?
We use the burning house to cook them. I mean, I'm reminded of, I think it was Kodo Roshi who gave a Dharma talk similar to this one. And if I remember right, he was talking about a time before he was a monk when he worked for a fire department. And when you're in the fire department, people will run away from the house, but your job is to run to the house, right? And he used that as a metaphor for the bodhisattva. It is, it's even a bit selfish to think that you're going to save yourself. Just, okay, let the house burn down. But the point of, there is no distinction between samsara and nirvana. There's only the house, and there's nowhere else to go. So the fire is what is. And maybe you do the Heart Sutra too and say there is no fire, but there is. The idea that getting out itself can be kind of a selfish act. Like, who is it who's trying to get out, and for what reason? The other thing is the lie that the father said. I believe he said I have some toys for you, and here we are talking about Zen without toys. And if I remember right, he did have some toys of sorts. The chariot, isn't it? Wasn't it the chariot?
Goat curts and horse
Yeah.
curts. Yeah.
And I believe it talked about the three vehicles, and I think in the context of the Lotus Sutra, the three vehicles would be the traditional Theravada, and then the Mahayana, but also the one like Buddha himself, which just became enlightened from his own efforts. So those are the three vehicles, the three ways. So the toys are not mere toys; they're actually tools for achieving the end of dealing with the problem of suffering.
Sawyer?
So kind of we're still in the burning house, but I'm moving to a different room maybe, which is, you were talking about how when Sawaki Roshi met with, or sort of learned a lot from Fuyoka Roshi. One of the things he said to him was, in order to sort of understand and thoroughly practice Zazen, and the meaning of Zazen, and the meaning of Dogen's, Shikantaza and Dogen's teachings about it, you have to sort of understand all of Buddhism. And so I wonder how we put that teaching next to the teaching that your first Zazen is the same as the Buddha's Zazen. We have these two kind of ways of looking at it. Like, one is you just sit down, awakening is there moment by moment if you're doing the practice. And then we have this other teaching that says sort of you need to embrace all of Buddha's teachings to really understand Zazen. And that's been a question for me for a while. How do those two fit together?
Yep. So I think that's exactly what we do here, right? Because when we look at our sort of central practices, Zazen, work, study, liturgy. Zazen and study are two of the really important ones. So for many, many years, Todo-san did 2 genzoes a year. Why did he do that? He said, because we do so much Zazen here, if we don't deeply understand, if we don't study, I'm paraphrasing him clearly, we're likely to go off the rails. We're not going to understand Zazen. We're going to take Zazen as a spiritual technology, or we're going to get something out of it, or we're going to do it for gaining reasons, right? So it's very true that on one hand, you sit down and your very first moment of Zazen is Buddha's Zazen, and on the other hand, it's easy to make something out of that, right? So we kind of have to understand the context and the nature of Zazen while we're doing Zazen in order to not twist it, I think. Now, I don't know if that's what that conversation was about, but when I look at what we do here, so when I hear you talk about that, I go, we've been doing that here, thanks to Todo-san, from the beginning, right? Because it would be easy to say, it's all about the Zazen, just sit down, that's all you need, you don't need the stuff. And yet, right? It would be so easy, especially if we're sitting on our own and we're not having our practice sort of reflected back by the Sangha, to have a story about that. And so the study is equally important. I think that's what Todo-san has really brought to us here. We need both of those pieces, right? So, and when you look at the depth and the context and the scope of what Todo-san covers in Genzo, I mean, he has to go way, 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 way back to show us the context of what Dogen's talking about, so we understand that. So I think it's two important wings, right? So I don't know if that was the conversation with Sawaki Roshi. and Fukuroshi. But for me, I just think that sun should practice. So like that's really important. What you're bringing up is really important. I think it's a question we hang on to. I don't think that's an easy answer, right? I think it's a really important question. I didn't hijack you, Esho. You probably had an answer and I jumped right in there.
Do you
Huh?
have an answer?
She already did.
Very wise teacher, you let other people speak for you.
I mean, Sawaki Roshi's point was Dogen also studied so much. He already, studied so much. He studied from Tendai tradition, and he already studied so much text before he went to China. So he had already knowledge of Buddhism, and then when he wrote what he wrote in Shobogenzo and everything, that was already, in it. So Todo-san also told me to study early Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism before go to Shobogenzo, because in order to understand Shobogenzo, what Dogen Zenji wrote, you have to have the background of what he was talking about. Otherwise, there would be, it doesn't make sense. When I first went to Todo-san's Genzoe 20 years ago, I had no idea what he was talking about. So as you practice, but also as you sit more, and sitting zazen and studying will come together, because what you read and study, you actualize it, you will feel it, you sense it when you're sitting zazen. That's how it becomes alive. So it's not one another. So it is true the same zazen, and you first start zazen, it's same zazen we do, and there is the studying also helps to really become this teaching becomes alive, becomes your muscle and blood and marrow. That's how we sit zazen. So I think it's not, you can't really just choose one and then forget the other.
Yeah, I guess it's also, as another wrinkle there, it's amazing to think in Zazen, we're also not, because we're letting go of thought, we're also letting go of the thinking about the Dharma. So it's like, how does the Dharma even get in there? Because we're letting go of everything, including, any intellectual understanding of the Dharma. So it's kind of just a paradox at a certain point. You just have to dive in. But
I think on that too, also, the Heart Sutra is really kind of mentions a lot of the early Buddhist teachings, and then says not this. I mean, it's kind of negating each of those teachings. So in a sense, our Zen approach is really incorporating the earlier Buddhist teachings.
So in the end, I think what we are studying and also what we are sitting is beyond the word, beyond separation, beyond body and mind. So that's paradox of what we are doing. Even though we are, that's what we are doing, but still we have to study. We have to use words to communicate. We have to use our body to practice. So that's the paradox that we are in. And then still we are the one and same and the equal and everything. So it's kind of like a magical.
So what did Siddhartha have? What did Siddhartha have?
What?
What did Siddhartha have?
What do you mean?
What did he study?
Oh. What do you mean?
I mean, we study a tradition that has a lineage going back to Buddha. We say that our Zazen is the same Zazen as Buddha's Zazen. We have a curriculum. What was Siddhartha's curriculum?
He also studied, right?
Well, he studied
Yeah,
yoga.
He had,
And he
well,
had yoga, like Patanjali, like yoga,
Right.
but it said that he went past his teachers. That is, the teachers he had, he went past them. They did what he did was more than what he got from his teachers, according to the legend. So what did he have?
And didn't he also say that he discovered something that had been hidden in the forest? Something along those lines, a teaching or
Well,
an
he did,
understanding.
well, we say that he had predecessors, and I'm not sure how he connected with them. I think that's mythology anyway. But then we might go to his predecessors. What did his predecessors have?
I think we're, if I might say, I feel like we're complicating the question because I think Buddha, Siddhartha studied suffering
Okay,
and came to this conclusion, this way of dealing with suffering.
mm-hmm. So his teacher was the world.
Yeah. Being alive.
Okay, that answered the question.
I'd like to kind of articulate how I've been kind of like hearing what's being talked about here. The Buddha, or it seems like the Buddha came up in the tradition of like Vedic like religious practice and so on and so forth. So I think what ended up happening is he came up against some roadblock that many of his contemporaries also came up against. And he had some sort of like life experience that allowed him to see the path around that roadblock. And I think, going back to what you were talking about, Sawyer, I think to phrase Buddhist teachings another way, Buddhist teachings are the theory, whereas the practice is Zazen. So you study the theory, and then once you actually bring it into practice, both in sitting and in real life, you reach new understandings that you wouldn't be able to realize just looking at the theory. And what the theory is just the experiences of people before us who went through experiences that we may encounter later on in our practice, that we're encountering right now. And yeah, it's just a process that mutually reinforces each other. Does that make sense? I'm afraid I'm rambling.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. So that's just kind of how I understand what's been being talked about.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online that has a comment, question? Anyone else in the room? Shall we wrap it up?
Let's go to world peace.